Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to conduct a totally forensic deconstruction of one of the most legendary, frankly terrifying figures to ever step onto a football pitch, Jörg Albertz. We aren't just going to sit here and read off his stats. No, we're going to visually break down the sheer ballistics of his strikes. So if you've ever wondered how raw, unfiltered physical power can just completely override complex tactical systems, well, you are absolutely in the right place.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our analytical dossier for today. We've got 5 key areas we're hitting. First up, the sound of impact. Then, anatomy of the rocket. Breaking the defensive wall, velocity as a strategy, and finally, the last, heavy artillery. Let's break this whole phenomenon down.
Section 1. The sound of impact. The primal noise of absolute force. You know, we're starting our analysis today not with a standard player biography, but actually with a sound. Thwack. It was this unbelievably clean, violent noise of a football being struck with such absolute, unrestrained force that it almost felt like it defied the very fabric of the game. Seriously, when you heard that noise echoing over the roar of the crowd, you knew exactly what had just happened.
Back in the late 1990s, that incredible sound was synonymous with just one man. Known to the Rangers faithful at Ibrox as the Hammer, the German midfielder didn't just score goals. As the quote says, he delivered ordnance. It was literally heavy artillery. When Albertz stepped up to take a 30-yard free kick, the stadium didn't just hold its breath, it physically braced for impact.
And there's a massive difference in attacking philosophies here. On one side, you have the delicate, intricate geometry and finesse of a player like Nakamura, or the clever, predatory movement of someone like McCoist. But then you have Albertz. He was a pure study in raw, unadulterated kinetic energy. His tactical philosophy was brilliantly simple. If the ball is within 30 yards and there's a clear path to the goal, well, the most logical conclusion is maximum velocity.
Section 2. Anatomy of the rocket. The biomechanics of the hammer. Let's move to and see how this builds.
We really need to look at the science behind this power, because Albert's technique was a total masterclass in biomechanical leverage. Step 1, the run-up. Short, deliberate. He didn't need rhythm, he needed intense torque. Step 2, lock and load. At the moment of impact, his ankle locked into a perfectly rigid structure, driving straight through the dead center of the sphere. Step 3, the result. And this is where it gets crazy, because the ball didn't just travel, it absolutely erupted, completely bypassing any standard arcs and flying on a terrifyingly linear trajectory. The sheer force generated by this technique meant that even world-class goalkeepers rarely had time to even move their feet. They were just left frozen there, watching a blurred projectile fly past them. His strikes would rattle the back of the net with enough raw power that it genuinely felt like he was threatening the structural integrity of the goal frame itself. No joke.
Section 3. Breaking the defensive wall. The old firm crucible. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this intense physical technique actually translated to the tactical battlefield. Albertz acted as a true system breaker. You see, in the claustrophobic, high-pressure environment of the old firm derbies against Celtic, time and space were pretty much non-existent. When opponents just parked the bus and creative play completely broke down, Albertz was the ultimate tactical cheat code. He didn't need a defensive mistake to score. He just relied on the simple fact that no wall on Earth can stop a projectile traveling at that speed. And why does this matter to us? Because he literally dictated the geography of the game, simply by existing on the pitch. Think about it for a second. Rangers' rivals were forced to alter their entire defensive strategy. Why? Because they fundamentally couldn't afford to give away a foul anywhere in the final third. His mere presence shifted exactly where the opposition was even willing to engage.
Section 4. Velocity as a strategy. The forensic legacy. And this brilliantly illustrates how Albertz essentially bridged the gap between the physical battles of the mid-90s and the structured tactical game we see today. He turned raw velocity into a legitimate strategic weapon. First, there's the psychological pressure. He created a real climate of fear for defenders. Knowing the hammer was out there meant every single foul carried the heavy weight of a potential goal, which obviously benefited the entire Rangers squad. Second, he became a symbol. Whenever he loaded up for a strike, this dangerous primal anticipation just gripped the entire stadium. It was the feeling of absolute inevitability.
Section 5. The last heavy artillery. Albertz versus the modern game. Let's contrast Albertz's incredibly audacious style with the ultra-analytical football landscape we see today. The modern game is totally obsessed with metrics, right? Expected goals, intricate passing percentages, highly choreographed routines, technical fluidity, all of that. But Albertz represents this stark contrast. He's the heavy artillery, the brute, honest force. So the crucial point is that he didn't ask for permission to score. He seized it. He proved that sometimes the absolute best way to solve a complex defensive structure is to just hit the ball with absolutely everything you have.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder. Given today's trend toward intricate, highly choreographed passing strategies, is the pure power specialist completely obsolete in the modern game, or is there still room out there for just overwhelming force? Has tactical evolution truly erased the need for the hammer? It's definitely a fascinating question to consider the next time you're watching a hyper-analytical match. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the mechanics of the game.